Hey there, welcome to the AGO Plus podcast, your podcast companion to the Anime and Gaming Outpost Plus. I'm your host Pete, and right over there, even if you can't see him, or me for that matter, is AJ. Give the people a warm shout out, AJ.
Hey. I'll try and keep Pete in check here for you guys.
These podcasts are going to primarily cover anime and video games, but we'll go outside of that at times into other aspects of the entertainment world, whether that's movies, music, or sports. Hence the plus. The venue is friendly and casual, so feel free to hang out with us here. We're going to go in-depth on a lot of things, but that doesn't mean we won't make time for laughs, too. With decades of following these topics, we'll look beyond the headlines and give honest, sometimes blunt perspectives and forecasts that might just surprise you. The specific name and format of this podcast may evolve over time as we work out the bugs. In this pilot episode, we're going to discuss the Nintendo Direct from September 13th, 2018, recounting the announcements but also digging into them until we hit pay dirt. Buckle in, as this episode's a long one, perfect for a listen on a road trip or your highway commute to and from work. It's going to be informative and fun, so stay tuned and let's go. AJ, run the tape.
AGO Plus.
Alright, so today Nintendo had their delayed Nintendo Direct, and it ended up being on September 13th, 2018. This started out with a little bit of a bang with Luigi's Mansion 3 for the Nintendo Switch.
Which seems out of left field.
Which seemed
a
little...
date.
Yeah, the very first Luigi's Mansion was in 2001, and the second one more recently in 2013, but neither game really blew off the doors or whatever with sales. The first Luigi's Mansion, according to VG charts, did 3.6 million, and then the second one did 5.32 million, which is an improvement, but it's sort of a middling number.
And that was the port, right?
Well, no, that was not the port. No, the second game was in 2013, was actually an original game that was produced outside of Nintendo with Nintendo's help.
And do we know how well the port did? Or?
The port didn't come out yet. The port comes out soon, though. This comes out in October. I think it's they actually talked about that during this Direct. It comes out October 12th, but we'll get into that. They've been kind of doing some teasers, really, when I think about it, that Luigi's Mansion was coming back, because they previously announced there would be a remake of the original for 3DS, and they also had the Smash Direct opened with Luigi and the Luigi's Mansion. Even though it was Castlevania, they were kind of sort of tipping their hand there a little bit if you were thinking about it, but obviously they were just trying to be crafty. So
I don't know that anyone was thinking of it, to be honest.
I don't think anyone was really thinking about it. I think back in...
Well, they were obviously...
Well, they were thinking about it.
That's why they had it in the Smash and things.
All right. Yeah, I think that they've been talking about Luigi, doing a new Luigi's Mansion for a while, and eventually it ended up on 3DS, but I think people were wondering, well, why wasn't it back on the Wii? I think it was originally talked about maybe for Wii a long time ago, because the Wii remote would make such a great, flashlight / vacuum cleaner, and you can just use the pointer to aim at ghosts and everything.
They just didn't commit, though, back then.
They didn't commit to it, but now the Switch really is like a Swiss Army knife, kind of like the Wii U was, but even more so because, everything's kind of built into it. So they already have the gyros and everything with
all the functionality.
Yeah, so they can still do a lot of the motion control and that kind of thing that they could have done with the Wii. So I think that it's probably going to turn out fine, but I'm going to be honest with you. When I first saw this trailer, the opening of the thing, the music started, this kind of creepy music with sort of this fog and everything. And my first thought was, oh, okay, they're going to start with some Metroid Prime 4 early footage, maybe, wishful thinking.
I mean, it could have been. It didn't. It did strike me, a little different than what the normal Metroid vibe would have been. I thought maybe more of, if it was Metroid, it would have had more of a sci-fi reverb kind of a music. But yeah, okay, I could kind of see that. Yeah.
So that was my first thought, and then my second thought was probably even more erroneous than my first thought, because then when I saw it and it was Luigi's Mansion, I actually thought it was the 3DS Luigi's Mansion.
I said, wow, this looks really good.
I thought, I don't know why. I mean, obviously it's rendered, at a higher level than than what the 3DS was doing, but maybe I thought it was like a pre-rendered cutscene or something like that.
Okay, I can see that.
And I don't know, it's been a long time since I've played the original Luigi's Mansion, and I really didn't remember anything that was in it, so I just said, I don't necessarily remember all this stuff, but it kind of looks sort of familiar. So that's kind of a good thing, I guess, in the sense that it feels, like you would want Luigi's Mansion to feel. It's just, I don't know, does it distinguish itself enough?
Well, what was the strategy behind porting the other? Is that...
That's a two-pronged thing. First thing is to have some more content for 3DS.
That's what I was wondering. Is it just to support 3DS?
I think that's the primary reason. And the secondary reason is it's like, this is a way to get people
hyped up for the next...
Hyped up for 3 and interested. We already did 2 for the 3DS.
But my question is, I was always under the impression that the 3DS audience was not the same audience as the main, system console audience. Or do you think they're dual users?
I think there's some crossover, but I think what they're hoping is I think that eventually they're trying to transition people from the 3DS to Switch.
Okay.
And it's just a matter of whether or not the 3DS is going to stay around or if it's going to be replaced by another dedicated portable system or
4DS.
Yeah, the 4DS.
The long rumored 4DS.
Yeah, this one includes smell-o-vision.
Right.
So that would be impressive. But that was a surprise. Like you said, nobody really saw that coming. I didn't see it coming. So that was a good thing to open up with. Although...
So you would have preferred to open with the Metroid, but...
It seemed a little early for Metroid, honestly. So it was a nice surprise. But Luigi's Mansion is not necessarily like the top of the charts kind of game. So, it was nice. It's a good thing to add to the Switch's library. But I don't know if it's going to be a game changer for the Switch. But they started with that, and that was kind of just the cold opening, the little stinger, and then they moved away from Switch, actually. Speaking of the 3DS, they decided to go into what they're bringing to the 3DS, and they had a whole dedicated segment about 3DS. And the first game...
What are they bringing to 3DS?
Yeah, what are they bringing? Well, I'm glad you asked that, because the first thing that they're bringing is a port of a 2010 game from the Wii.
Nice.
So it's... Kirby's extra epic yarn. It's even more epic than before.
Extra? Okay.
Yeah. So they didn't really say whether or not it supports the 3D functionality. I don't know if maybe they did. I didn't catch that, though. So maybe it's more for the 2DS than the 3DS, but, it's all kind of rolled into one these days.
Sales-wise, it would probably lean towards 2DS the way they've been marketing recently.
Yeah, some of the stuff they've been dropping the 3D altogether, right. Like the Pikmin, they dropped that. So this is like a remake of the Wii game, but now Kirby has new abilities. There's a speedrunning mode where there's like some kind of mole that chases you through the levels to make it more action-packed, I guess you could say, in the sense that it's not as chill of a game where you're just kind of moseying through. You kind of have to use more skill to push your way through it faster. And then there's mini games that feature yarn versions of a bunch of other Kirby characters like King Dedede and Meta Knight and all the ones that the Kirby fans love. So it's got some fan service in there. If you've played the original, I'm not sure that it's gonna, win you over.
Well, and that's the other thing is what's the price point?
They don't talk about the price point, so I don't know.
So I'm just curious. Do they want people? Is it going to be a full price game? You think it'll be a $39.99 type deal?
It's at least going to be $39.99,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure. I think that
Is there enough content to get old people to rebuy, or is it just a situation where they're just going to try and pick up new people with just...
Yeah, I think it's been so long, relatively speaking, that I think they think there's a new generation of people who didn't play that content. I don't know that content did extremely well on the Wii to begin with. I don't know if a lot of people...
Which fits my theory we'll talk about later, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. But I think that it was late in the Wii's life cycle or later anyways, and I think it was like within the last 3 years or something of the life cycle of it. So I think that they just decided that it would be new content for the 3DS, just like Luigi's Mansion, to kind of bump up the 3DS, keep it going a little longer without too much extra effort. And I'm sure it's a quality experience. So I think it's for people too who just played the port of Yoshi's Woolly World to the 3DS. They ported that with new modes with Poochie and all that, all the Poochie friends.
All right,
and all that.
Okay.
So I think that this game was sort of the prequel to Woolly World, where they introduced the yarn. I think it's done by the same company, in fact, so the same developers.
So building off that audience.
So just build out off that audience, give them something else. So that's actually coming in 2019, but I didn't really get a hard date on that, and I don't think they gave one. If I did, I missed it. So that was actually new. They had not talked about that before for 3DS, so that was a new announcement of an old game, but a new version of an old game. Next was Mario and Luigi Inside Story, Bowser's Inside Story, and Bowser Jr.'s Journey. It's another sort of remake of an old Mario and Luigi RPG style game, but this one they're adding a new quest mode to it that features Bowser Jr. and his story of recruiting people. So if you're into like the Mario RPG kind of stuff, Mario and Luigi, even Paper Mario to some extent, it might be of interest. But, there's some old content here that's being remixed again for 3DS. That comes out January 11th, 2019. Then they went into Luigi's Mansion, the remake for 3DS. Now, they actually did add some more stuff with this one, too, just like they did with the other two I mentioned. I mean, there's a 2-player mode now where you kind of play this, like, Slimer version of Luigi. There's, like, a green...
Is that, like, a helper character, or is that you play face-off, or do you help,
If you have... I think they said if you have 4 game cards and 4 systems...
And who doesn't have 4 systems and 4 game cards, right?
Well, your friends, Right. It's kind of like the original Game Boy. If you have all the cards and you have the link cable, you can...
bring it along, right?
So the same kind of thing, but then you can actually play together, like on the regular game, like ghost busting together. But if you only have 1 game card amongst your friends, you can still play like 2 players in a boss rush kind of mode where you face off against bosses. You just can't go through the mansion together.
All right.
It has amiibo compatibility. It wasn't really completely clear to me. It looks like you tap it and then it shows you different areas where boos are hidden in the mansion and stuff like that. And that game, Luigi's Mansion for 3DS, arrives October 12th, they said. After that was Yokai Watch Blasters, which Yokai Watch has been this sort of ghost version of Pokemon that came out a while ago, and I don't really know if it's caught on over here. I've seen some plushies and stuff.
Yeah, I remember we were talking and you said you weren't sure, and I don't know if there's been numbers on that one.
I haven't checked the numbers, but I mean, it must be doing okay because they keep releasing
new risk on it,
new versions of it. Now this one is like the spin-off version that's like you play the ghosts who are Ghostbusters versus being like a human who controls ghosts in battle. So it's a little different, but there's going to be a DLC update for it too that you can, it's an extra mode. I don't know exactly what it is because I don't play Yokai Watch. Full disclosure, but no, it seems like it's kind of like how there's Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow. It's like another version of the game that you can play with different, characters and stuff like that. I think it's a different team of characters you choose from. That was it for the 3DS. Right after that was it. So they went back to the Switch.
But before that, I mean, it does seem like in terms of the 3DS, it's clear that console is kind of on its last legs. Obviously, it's been in the cycle for a while, and
it's been in the spin cycle.
Yeah, basically. And in terms of like quality new games designed specifically for it versus ports or updates, I mean, has it been a while, right?
The last big game I remember was this Metroid Samus Returns.
I mean, that was designed specifically for it, but on the other hand, it was a remixing, a retelling.
Yeah, it was kind of this strange animal where it was like, it really kind of was a new game in some ways in terms of like the map design. It didn't really borrow like tons, but
what they called the super finishes. I forget.
Yeah, it has. It had all like the counter moves and stuff like that with like more like melee attacks. And like you're saying, there's finishers against the enemies, kind of like Other M, really. So it was kind of a new game, but it was at the same time it was like a retelling of an old game. And it really was the same kind of thing they did with Metroid Zero Mission, where they remade Metroid 1 but the map was really, drastically altered to kind of reflect later Metroids and stuff. So it had innovations and stuff, but
so my point was I didn't know how much commitment they've been showing the last couple of years. I mean, obviously, like I said, it's the end of the cycle kind of thing. And I think they're just trying to squeeze what they can out of it.
Yeah.
And, give those users still some experiences.
Yeah, it's not really clear what the future of 3DS is right now. I mean, Nintendo has talked about wanting to support it for, I think they said at least another year. I mean, I think they're pretty...
Well, I mean, I could see that because you could still find another port or something like that. I mean, I'd be surprised if they had a big AAA kind of thing that's specifically designed for brand new kind of a IP or, continuing title,
The only things I've heard, there's been rumors out there that they might be interested in remaking another Zelda for it, sort of like what they did with A Link Between Worlds, where it was sort of like a complete reimagining of a
right.
Link's,
so I mean, if they did something like that, I could see that. I guess I would count that in the category of new-ish. I still think there's a caveat there.
I would think, though, if they did that, that would be the swan song. I mean, some of the rumors around that were that it was Link's Awakening, but if that's what that is, then I would imagine that's going to be the last big-ish title for the machine. There's some stories going around, too, that there might be another Metroid that's being kind of thought of or being in the planning stages from the side of the 2D team versus the Prime stuff. So
yeah, where would you take that then? Would you take it? That's the big question.
That's a matter of they already have the assets that they worked on from the 3DS. Would they keep it on 3DS or would they move it? Would they move it to Switch and then you'd have two Metroids on Switch, one for the more classic style fans and another for the more first person kind of Prime people. So that's.
So that was a 3DS.
Yeah, basically. That was a 3DS. And then they went back in on the Switch, which they started with a Splatoon 2 music video introducing version 4. So it looks like, new weapons and outfits and some stages, but same kind of Splatoon stuff. If you're getting good value, if you've got the game because you had the Octo expansion earlier this year, and then you've had different versions, updates, just like the original Splatoon on the Wii U. So
no new modes, though, probably, right?
I didn't see any. It didn't look like that. It looked, they had added some new modes in the other versions, but I think this is it. For now, anyways. I mean, they might do another version, but I mean, for this particular version, I think I don't know if I'd expect anything that big with it. They said go to their website for more information, so you can check that out. But I mean, it's kind of strange that they wouldn't. If it was such a big announcement about new content, you'd think they would actually have given you some more information on it during the Direct. So then after that, they gave a surprisingly high spot, for talking about to Mega Man 11 from Capcom, and it's a multi-platform. Rebirth of the classic 2D side-scrolling Mega Man adventures.
Dual gear system?
The double gear system. That's the new twist on it now, where you can do different abilities like slow down time or give yourself double buster shots or whatever. It's kind of these moves that sort of, I think, are supposed to make it more accessible to a casual crowd or people who aren't familiar with Mega Man. But I've also can imagine that if they built the levels around it and the stuff, it could be more for strategic purposes. But I don't know. I'm concerned that it's going to be a little invasive. I mean, you can probably just ignore it, though. They've said as much. So
you can play old style if you want.
Yeah, if you want to play old style, but. I mean, the strange thing is they've had stuff like that before in the later Mega Mans where you could buy upgrades that could, like, create a rapid-fire shot or no damage from, spikes or whatever, different things to make it easier. So it's interesting that they baked that into the main advertising of the game. The game itself, they showed some Bounce Man, one of their new robot masters, and Mega Man has, he's, like, launching balls everywhere, like, they're bouncing all over the place. It's interesting that Mighty No. 9 came out, which was the controversial sort of attempt...
Answer
or whatever to...
Continuation
of Mega Man in the sense that Mega Man wasn't being made by Capcom, so Keiji Inafune left and tried to, start it up himself with his own company Concept. But, that was a... complicated and controversial situation that we don't can go into all the details here, but the Kickstarter and everything. But what's interesting is in that game, the main character Beck he get physically changed by absorbing the powers of the bosses. And previously Mega Man would just get a palette swap for absorbing the powers.
That's true. Yeah, he didn't change his physical.
And I remember them saying how hard it was after a while to make sure that the palette swaps were different enough from game to game so that they weren't repeating like palette swaps. Because they started to like color his joints in different colors too to try and, even if they had to color like, if it was white and blue, then they had to add like red joints or something to make it different than a previous, Master's Power.
And with some of those graphics, I wonder if you could even like that level.
I don't even think
could you tell?
I don't think you could
visually
see it
on the screen. Like,
no, I don't think so.
Like joints and stuff like that.
No, just in the artwork. But what they ended up doing for this one is what they did for Mighty Number 9, where Mega Man's like his helmet changes based on whatever the enemy is. Like the Block Man, he gets like a bunch of like bricks over his helmet and stuff, and then the Mega Buster that releases the power has different effects on it too. So like they've changed his design based on that. So that's kind of like a little... They've had stuff like that in Mega Man spin-off series like the Battle Network series. But this is the first time that it's been in the classic mainline Mega Man. And...
What do you think about that as a longtime fan? Do you like the idea that, that it would take on physical, or is that... It
was surprising to see, but it doesn't bother me. I think it looks kind of cool, so I don't have anything wrong with it. I just find it a little strange considering the whole Mighty Number 9 had that, and what makes it more strange to me is looking at the game visually in terms of its animations and its backgrounds and like the foreground assets. I don't know, maybe it doesn't look... Well, I'll say this: like some things are more polished. Like Mighty Number 9 was infamous for its strange-looking explosions and stuff, but so it looks probably more uniform. But I don't know that it's that much more detailed, really, than Mighty Number 9.
Yeah, is that a product of just the software they're using, coming up with similar textures and things like that, or do you think it's they were... I mean, was it an intentional thing to try and, like, an RE to Mighty, or was it just, like, this is the limitations of the software and what, kind of a nod, like KG kind of had it. He was onto something, maybe.
He was onto something.
Is that what you think they were saying?
It could be. It could just be...
Or just coincidence?
Like, maybe in terms of the gameplay, they don't want the visuals to be too distracting, maybe. They don't want it. They want you to be able to see what you can interact with on a 2D plane, since they're fooling around with like 3D assets in here. I don't know. The problem I have with it is it doesn't really, from what I've seen anyways, it doesn't seem to just jump off the screen and say, Mega Man is here for the next generation. It seems kind of...
an intermediate step, maybe.
It feels like an intermediate step, almost like it's sort of like was like an anniversary download game or something.
Okay, I get you.
So, I mean, they did let me just put it this way. They did Powered Up a while ago, which was sort of this chibi-style remake of the original Mega Man back on the PlayStation Portable. And while these visuals are probably smoother than that, in terms of, like I'm saying, the details and sort of the art direction, I don't see that it's that much of a leap. And the Switch is, I mean, it should be more powerful than the PSP. Yeah. So, I would think that Mega Man at this point should be able to make a bigger statement visually. Like when I went from playing Mega Man on the NES to the Super NES, there was you saw the change.
You could see the jump.
Yeah, you could see the jump, and you could even see some of the jump between the SNES and the PlayStation. It was a little different kind of a jump though, because they sort of played with the art style even more. So even though both were more powerful than the NES, they had a little bit of a different take on it in terms of the proportions of Mega Man and what the world would look like around him. But regardless, I'm cautious about this title, but it looks like it could still be fun. So there's been some criticism, too, of Mega Man's walking or running animation. I don't know. Sometimes I look at it and I think it looks a little funny. Other times I think it's fine. And I think that they were just trying to match sort of the immediacy of the gameplay of the original Mega Man with newer graphics. So when you do that, sometimes translating those kind of animations into gameplay creates sort of things that don't necessarily look the most natural. I mean, sometimes his walk was more like overly exaggerated on like the 32-bit Mega Mans and stuff. So we'll see how that works. They went to Mario Tennis after that. Now they released Mario Tennis Aces, that's right. But this is the 2.0 version.
Okay.
So now with this version, there's basically a bunch of new unlockables that are...
Now wait, is this whole thing a DLC I mean, everything's DLC now, but I mean, is it for the other?
You don't have to pay for this. I say that with a caveat because when we get to the upcoming piece about their online service, I wonder how that actually functions. Now that I think about it, but in fact, that's really actually says it all right there. Now that I think about it, basically the idea though is you play online,
right? Okay.
And as you play online and win matches, you can unlock new characters that you can acquire for your game. So
while I'm paying my monthly fee.
By paying, we'll get to that. We're still going to get to that. Birdo from Mario Brothers 2. You got Shy Guy, which I think also made the debut in Mario 2. Koopa Paratroopas, which were from the original Mario. And Petey Piranha, which is... I think it was from Super Mario Sunshine was the first time it was introduced, but it was basically like a piranha plant that's big, like a big version of it that can walk. Okay. And it was a boss in this Mario Aces story mode, as I understand it, and now they made it into a playable character, with the caveat is you have to earn it. And they added new co-op modes, mission modes online, where they're going to, I think it's kind of like Splatoon, where you get different content depending on the day. They give you a different like stages to play. Same thing with this, different mini games that you can play with other people online. And if you complete these challenges, like hitting a bunch of rings or boos with your tennis racket with the ball, then you can earn also new clothing and stuff for your characters and alternate color schemes, of course.
Okay, nice.
So that's
definitely worth it. Color schemes. So
that comes out September 19th. And back to Mega Man 11, I got so wrapped up in all the minutia there as a longtime Mega Man fan that I forgot to mention that was October 2nd. So that's coming up quick also. From there, they had actually another new game announcement from Capcom.
Oh.
Well, new old game. I don't know really how you'd classify this. The Capcom Beat 'em Up Bundle.
Come on, you can't call that a new game.
It's the bundle.
Right, the bundle.
And so this one's got Final Fight. The classic,
the brand new game,
the classic beat 'em up, arcade beat 'em up. They introduced the world to Mike Hagar, Guy, and Cody, which you've seen many of those in Capcom's fighting games since then. But it's also got some lesser known titles: King of Dragons, Captain Commando, Knights of the Round, and Warriors of Fate. Some of those sound like were they Japan only, or were they just obscure? In the U.S. Well, I'm gonna get to basically the situation is with those ones. All those, as I understand it, came to the U.S. in one form or another. And I think I've actually played maybe all of those. I'm not sure if I've played Captain Commando, even though I'm aware of it, and that's where Captain Commando from Marvel vs. Capcom came from. Captain Zordo. Anyways, what they did was those games were all released in one form or another, and they all play kind of like Final Fight. They're beat 'em ups. The difference being is they have different themes. So some of them have a science fiction theme or a fantasy theme, and that kind of affects the gameplay with different like power ups and moves. And they're really artistically done. Like there's really great sprite work in them. What they said though is they are going to give you 2 that have never come over here.
Okay.
So the ones I mentioned, in addition to those 5, there are 2 more. Armored Warriors, which is like a mecha beat 'em up, and then Battle Circuit, which I really wasn't clear what the theme was. It seemed to be maybe circus.
What is it? These are
circus related.
32-bit?
No, all these
16.
All these are kind of like that. Arcade gray area between like 16 and 32-bit.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere in there. It might be even that high-end Neo Geo kind of style. To be honest with you, I don't remember what Neo Geo was, but it's that high-end sprite work stuff. Right. So they all look pretty. They have great, gorgeous animation, but all of them are beat 'em ups one way or the other. Some have a little bit more whistles and bells.
I just wonder the audience, who they think they're getting with it. I guess it's nostalgia, but
you're going to get the nostalgia.
Obviously, there's new games, but at the same time, I still wonder if it's mostly just nostalgia.
I think it's for fans of Capcom and
fans of arcade
and arcade style beat 'em ups. I think it's gonna resonate really. Unfortunately, I don't think it's gonna reach any new audience. I think it's for people who experience.
So maybe
it
that's what they're planning, though.
Right. Well, and here's why they're doing that even further. They are adding some new stuff to it. There's a 4-player like online mode, so you can play together and
remember the old days.
Remember the old days together, exactly. Right now, it sounds like this is only coming to the eShop. It doesn't sound like it's getting a physical release. It's coming September 18th, though. So look out for that one. After that, they went into New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe.
So Wii U was the original, right?
Right, and they kept the U in it. I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess they had to. They had to, I guess. It's just kind of...
Well, it's kind of weird because, yeah, I mean, you thought the U was designating for that machine when it first came out.
Right.
Now that it's a new release, but I think it has new content.
Well, what they did is they added, the only thing that's new, honestly, is two new characters.
Oh, just
that's
characters.
It. And one of those characters actually was playable before in the extra download content, the Luigi side of stuff. So what they've done with this is, well, aside from the logo, we can't forget the logo. They put it in gold and it
has deluxe and it has this is sandwiched, right?
It's sandwiched with those Joy-Cons, and I think that's what really is a new feature there. But beyond that, they've got 164 courses that were in New Super Mario Brothers U and New Super Luigi U. So all of that content from the Wii U is on this. And then in addition to the playable characters before, they've added Nabbit, who was an extra playable character in the New Super Luigi U, and Toadette is the new character, is the actual real new character. It's just that Nabbit you couldn't play in the main mission before of Mario U. You could only play in the Luigi U side as Nabbit.
Okay.
So now you can play as Nabbit, and he has special abilities in the sense that he can't be killed by spikes and stuff like that. Like he has... So he's kind of more of
he's kind of more like a speedrunner.
Yeah, he's the speedrunner, more easy mode kind of guy. And then you have Toadette, which also seems to be put in to kind of help balance out any difficulty for newcomers. What she can do is she's got all these kind of new abilities like a double jump, and there's like this boost jump that if you fall into a hole, she can boost out of it. But actually, I'm jumping ahead of myself actually here because those things I mentioned, I'm not sure that Toadette can do those by herself. They're actually, some of them are linked, if not all of them, I think, are linked to a new ability. They've added a super crown that character can pick up. No word yet whether Mario can pick it up, but what it does is it turns you into basically a clone of Princess Peach.
Okay.
So she becomes Peachette, and then she has a bunch of powers that are Peach-related and beyond. So, she can do like the float that Peach could do since Mario 2 and that sort of thing.
All right.
That's what's new there. There's, it's 4 players, but other than that, it's kind of just a deluxe version. Deluxe-ish version. Because there actually was 2 releases already on the Wii U of this. They released it...
Luigi version second.
Separately. Both digital and physical, and then they released a bundle version that had both games on one disc later on in the Wii U's life cycle. So this is kind of the deluxe version with the 2 characters and the Joy-Con logo. That's coming January 11th, 2019. I think the strategy there is don't put it in the way of Smash Brothers this holiday. Get people to invest.
After Christmas, when they're looking for a new game in January.
Yep.
Okay.
They
for the Switch.
For the Switch. I mean, especially families. Maybe they invested in it for one game or another. Who knows which one they invested in for? But this will give them something else to do together. 4-player platformer, very accessible. I think that's what the strategy is there. The other part of that, though, is I think the reason they're doing this, if you look at the numbers from the video game charts, the version that they released for the Wii U did roughly 5.6 million units for the original by itself, and then the extra content with Luigi did 2.4 more or less. I don't know what the bundle did. That's the thing. I don't know if that includes that. Those numbers are included, but I can't imagine that was given the Wii U's install base and that it was released after those. I can't imagine it was that much.
Well, yeah, and especially like you're saying, the people who bought Wii U's probably would have... I don't know if that would have convinced them to just, it's got a bundle game like that. I've been holding out this long. It's so late in the cycle. I'm going to jump on now. I think they probably by then they would have... it's too late.
Probably,
so that's
I
would think.
Probably. I mean, I think the only trick to that then is I think the reason they released it so late was I think that they had these other sort of bundles with Mario 3D World or some other games. There was one with Mario Maker, I think. I think they thought, well, maybe if you're late to jump on and you missed, that was like one of the launch titles for the system. Now maybe you want to go back and get that. So That's what they did with
Basically, they were putting everything with a Mario title that they could think of. Every kind of Mario title.
Well, that's the thing is that you have to remember that coming off the Wii, and that's the real crux of this, is the new Super Mario Brothers series. It was pushing close to like 30 million units sold when it was on the Wii or when it was on the DS, the original DS. So I think that they were looking for that. Like, let's just keep putting out Mario games. They're selling the Odyssey, not the Odyssey there, but the Galaxy games.
Right.
They did all right enough too. I mean, they weren't as big as the new Super series.
The 2D, well, what do you call it? It's not really 2D, but the locked plane where it's 2.5D or
where the 3D world, you mean?
Yeah. All those type of things. It's like, it's 3D, but it's like kind of locked in a 2.5.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's like a isometric view almost or something.
Those that we've talked that those have always, I think they've sold better in recent years.
Okay, yeah, well, I think that, like you're saying... the pure 2D ones
sold the best, right?
Sold the best, yeah.
And then, is there any information about the 2.5, 2.5?
Not
really.
I haven't really dug deep into that. I know that 3D World did close to 5 million units, whereas Odyssey did close to 10 million. So... there's that number. I didn't look. I think I heard, though, that 3D Land for the 3DS actually did better than 3D World. Now, that could be, again, an install-based thing. I'm not really sure. Or, it could be that was the first portable 3D Mario that was, like, dedicated to a system. I mean, there have been ports, but that was the first time they'd ever done a dedicated game. So, I don't know. The verdict's out on that, but I can see why they would want to put the U series.
Yeah, people are still waiting for that Sunshine port.
Yeah, they are.
The remaster, whatever you want to call it.
I think you're right, actually. Yeah, I think actually people would have been more excited at this point for the Sunshine. But I think Nintendo's looking at it. They've probably made, if the numbers are accurate that I've seen, they've probably made somewhere around 8 or 9. At best case scenario, if that bundles are not included, if you include the bundles that. Maybe around 9 million units of the new Super U stuff that they did with Mario and Luigi. So I think that they're thinking, look, if we did, that's like a third of what we did on the Wii and the DS with those titles. On the Switch, with its growing install base, maybe we can make up the extra 10, maybe more, 20 million units. I mean, that's really hard to believe, especially when you look at like the Donkey Kong numbers with the country, like when they did the Tropical Freeze, yeah, they've done close to a million now on Switch, as far as I've seen. But the Wii U version did 1.7, which. Now, that's saying a lot, actually, because the other game was out for a while.
Yeah.
Versus this other one's been out a few months and it's already caught up. But even so
that just points to install base.
Right. But even so, that's not really what I would call...
burning it up.
Burning it up, though. I mean, it's not doing Odyssey numbers or something just because it's on Switch now. So there may be some limitations to certain franchises like that.
Now, is it the franchise, you think, or do you think it's just the style? Like, like we were talking about the full 3D versus a locked camera.
Well, this should, if that's the argument, I mean, the 2D has done better for Mario. Theoretically, it should do better for Donkey Kong. I mean, there's only been one full 3D Donkey Kong.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah, with the Nintendo 64. So, and that was controversial. Some people didn't like the changes. Other people did. I myself it's a little overstuffed, with a little too much in
packed
it.
With stuff.
Yeah, but I don't know. I found it enjoyable, but it doesn't necessarily match it has a different pacing that people are looking for, like pure platforming challenges. Then you're not going to get that out of what the 3D one was. They did a Donkey Kong. What would be interesting to see is if they did a Donkey Kong eventually in the style of 3D World, where you have that
isometric,
in between view that might be able to combine both styles pretty well. But right now, I think that they're trying to get extra sales for the work they did on the U series. So once they finished with that, they talked about Katamari Damacy Reroll, bringing back the Katamari.
Oh, that was years ago. When was that?
I didn't have that year in front of me, but that was a long time. That seemed like that was a long time ago. I think that was like to give you an example.
Was that 2 consoles?
Like they ported that, as far as I recall, on the I think it was on PS2.
Yeah, like
and it got ported to PSP.
Right.
Like I remember, like that was kind of a big deal. It was getting these different ports.
So that would have had to have been, obviously I think that PSP first rolled out around like 2006,
5, 6, somewhere around there, I think.
Yeah, so I don't know if that would have been an early port or But
yeah,
still,
I don't know, but it would have
could be as old as
right,
12 years already.
Yeah, I know. That's true.
13 years.
Yeah. It's pretty old.
That's why I don't. That's another one of those like head scratchers for me. Like I don't know. Is it more? I haven't played it, so is it more of a party thing or?
They're trying. It's kind of. It's a strange kind of thing because. So here's the thing. First of all, it's a remastered version, so it's presumably better, smoothed up visually, but it's got motion controls. It's got HD rumble. Which is still not fully clear to me, but it's it's based on the
movement of the rumble
the rumble and stuff, whatever, in your hands, depending on what you do. And they think that would be useful for this because basically the game works where you just roll a bunch of junk. Basically like lipstick, pieces of paper, Legos, whatever.
Yeah, a bunch of stuff.
Anything that's laying around. You try and roll it into a ball as fast as you can, I guess, and like try and make as big of a ball as you can. Now, I never understood, is there like a time limit to this? It's not really clear to me how it actually functions, but that's the joy of the game, is that you try to roll as much of a junk as you can into a ball, and then that ball gets rated based on how big you made it, and it gets turned into a star in space or something.
Nice.
So that's what that is. And it has multiplayer where you try to see who can roll the bigger ball of junk. And that's coming. So this game's coming in 2018. It was, at the time when this came out, it was kind of a big deal. Like people talked about it. Like it was this fun kind of weird game to play. I don't know if they ever did this. It doesn't sound like it, but it almost sounds like a game that would lend itself to a phone game. Yeah. Where you just kind of move your finger around and roll over stuff. Yeah, I think you're right.
Directionally. But
that really would be something. But
I mean, I don't know why they developers didn't go that way with it, but that's okay. It's neither here nor there.
Anyways, what they're doing with this is they're just they're just going to release it again, and I don't know. It seems like a strange time, very strange timing, like you're saying. Like let's see what we can do with this Switch install base.
One last thing about that, I mean, it's obviously going for the install base and trying to give them extra content. That's what it's about. But like again, functionality-wise, maybe there's probably functionality you could do with the motion controls. I'm guessing, right? You can lead the thing around, big pile of junk.
Yeah, that's
what the gist of it is.
Yeah, that's.
I'm saying you could have done it on DS with a stylus.
Yeah,
you could have let it around.
I wonder if they did do a port. I don't really remember if they did or didn't.
All right, well, we'll have to check that out, but. So then what they...
So September 18th, then they broke in to tell you about the Nintendo Switch Online. And they wanted to focus on the 5 big features of it. And the 5 features are online play, which
you touched on about tennis.
Yeah, which makes me wonder, if you're going to be able... What constitutes online play? I think it actually constitutes...
Just legacy games?
I think it constitutes... No. I think it...
Well, I mean, there is a legacy component.
No,
right?
just there is a legacy component. So that's the second thing they highlighted. The NES section.
Right, the classic stuff.
Of the thing. And they're going to have a bunch of old NES games. They showed Ghosts and Goblins. They showed Metroid, Excitebike, Double Dragon, Gradius, Dr. Mario, Mario 3, Zelda 1, and a bunch of other ones. They're going to kind of trickle these out. They're not all going to be available at launch, as far as I know. You get to play them now multiplayer locally with 2 Joy-Cons, which is another feature that they added to stuff like those beat-em-ups. That's why Capcom was doing that, I think, at the other bundle they talked about earlier. And then there's online, where you can play these games online, and the NES was not an online system. So there wasn't even an internet at that point.
Obviously, yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, not for regular use anyways. Maybe the government had it, but... in the military. So what this means is you can play your NES games with other people or locally with your family or friends, but it's just limited to NES. It's not Super Nintendo. It's not 64. Yet. Right. What they may do is every other year introduce another section, and then they'll probably be adding new Joy-Cons because one of the things I'll just jump ahead because it connects right directly to this.
You won't be able to, yeah.
Right. Well, I think you probably could play these games. It looks like you can play them with your regular Joy-Cons, but they're going to release NES Joy-Cons for these too.
So basically you can foresee Super NES Joy-Con.
Yeah, 64 Joy-Con. They're going to look really weird. They're going to be really
Joy-Con.
super bulky on the sides, but that's what they're going to do, I think, eventually. So you get a 2-pack of NES controllers that can snap on and charge on your Switch for $59.99. But back to the other features, you're going to have save data in the cloud. They said if any accidents happen, you can have your data backed up. But I've heard there's been some stories out there that not everything is going to be able to be backed up. So they're going to have to clarify that as the time goes on. Then there's a smartphone app which allows you to do voice chat for select games. So they said, well, actually, they said that there's apps that are within the app that are compatible with it. So, like, there's something called Splatnet 2.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Because specifically, Splat only had, like, you said there was communication, even though there really wasn't.
Yeah.
You said people were using external.
Yeah, I think that they're using external communication to get the upper hand back on the Wii U. And, even now they really haven't solved that fully.
So this is going to basically now make it official. Right.
I think so.
You think that's
so.
One of the usage of it?
They showed some things like that you could use it for a second screen too. Like this is reminding me of Smart Glass. Remember that back when like Microsoft and Sony were trying to do the second screen of the Wii U without having a dedicated thing. Like that
was their response.
That's what this looks like to me. So there's going to be little enhancements you can get to your game by linking it with your phone, kind of thing. And then the last thing they offered was special offers, which was just like one of those Mario question mark blocks. They didn't tell you what it was. They said, stay tuned.
So you can get the Mario limited edition keyring.
Yeah, I think those are like
Mario limited edition cereal box opener. Mario. No, I don't know. Like what kind of weird stuff,
I don't know. Probably like in-game kind of things too, like extra, like when Link got his Switch T-shirt that he could explore Hyrule in.
I get it, but I don't know. Some of it I think is kind of pointless, but.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if you're, the value of it is
some people are into that, so that's fine.
Right. I mean, it's just more about customizing. So, I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. But, I think they threw that in there to give you extra incentive because they talked about, you're going to be paying for all this. They talked about the pricing situation. Nintendo has generally not made you pay for it.
Yeah, this is the first time. This is their rollout now.
Yep.
Their big,
And they haven't been very transparent about this to this point. I mean, they've been just kind of trickled out a little bit here, a little bit there. This is kind of the first time it's been laid out like A, B, C, D. Like
these are your plan options.
Yeah. By the way they laid out everything and showed the features was very attractive. It had great animation with the IPs, like Bowser playing on the couch and like just all sorts of stuff. The presentation was slick. So you can pay 1 month for $3.99. You get 3 months for $7.99 or 12 months for $19.99. Now, the caveat to this is it sounds like you're paying per account on your Switch. I mean, that wasn't fully clear to me. But
they're going to have to clarify some of these.
It sounds like that to me, though, because they said if you have 2 or more accounts, then you can save with a bundle for 12 months for $34.99. So basically, like you're basically only saving what are you saving, though? Like $5 more or less. I mean, because they basically rounded up to 20 and 20. You're getting 40 versus 35 for 12 months. I mean, But I guess it adds up though. If you have 3 or more people, I mean, it really starts to add up, I guess. So that's fine. I think that at least they're offering some kind of very Nintendo themed kind of things for these services. I mean, you're going to need the online play now. They've kind of baked that into so many games.
Building into all the games, yeah.
Yeah. Like, even that's the big thing that I didn't even think about before, talking about it here is, like, with... and it should have hit me during the Direct, like, the new characters and stuff that is a free update for Mario Tennis Aces is not really free because you have to pay now to play online to earn those characters.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's a different way of doing about it, but I mean...
it's maybe their way of, incentivizing it instead of, like, with ad stream or something like that.
And I guess, you know what, though? I guess I would approve this model over if they wanted me to do microtransaction for every character in the game, and like at least this way.
Well,
What if they said pay $20 for the extra characters and modes in Aces, one-time fee, versus if you pay $20 for the year, you at least get to play the NES games and other online games.
Yeah, you get all the other stuff. Right? And I see your point. It's not per transaction.
That's only if you get to keep those characters you earn online. Like I assume that you do, but maybe that's not the case. I mean, then it's a little bit of a different story.
As long as your account is active. As soon as your account is deactive, you lose all those. No, I don't know how it's going to work.
No, yeah. So I mean, there's some gray areas there, but anyways, they said you could pay for it via credit card or PayPal. That's how they're running this. I have to imagine, though, maybe not. I have to imagine they'll have like prepaid Nintendo cards in the stores for it, like dedicated, because that's what Xbox and Sony do. I mean, Microsoft and Sony do, but maybe they won't. I mean, Nintendo previously has just had eShop points, so maybe those aren't going to work the same way now. I don't know. They finished up. Well, no, they didn't finish up because they just kept going. They kept going. The next Switch title was Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee. They've talked about this game a lot now.
E3 had it, yeah. I remember that, yeah.
So basically now they were just talking about special techniques, which are abilities that allow you to advance in the game, like cutting through vegetation to get through it to the next area, or learning to fly or swim. Like these abilities to get through the overworld map used to be powered by technical machines, they were called, and they would Oh, I'm sorry. The correct answer was hidden machines. Now back to our regular scheduled program. They would teach you these moves that would allow you to do this, but they've changed up the system a little bit here, and it looks like Pikachu and Eevee in particular can only learn some of these special techniques for battle situations and stuff. So, there's a little bit of a difference there, but it's kind of sort of a remix of the old ideas from the games that this is based off of. And whoever you choose, Pikachu or Eevee, you're able to... The only other thing they talked about was that you can pet them now.
Nice.
With the touchscreen. And depending on how you pet their head, they'll have different hairstyles.
All right.
As a reward for petting them. So, that game launches November 16th with the Pokeball Plus accessory for it, which basically lets you play the game with a Pokeball-shaped Joy-Con.
What other releases do they like big title releases by November are they coming out with? Are any of these other ones before that or around that time?
I don't think so. I think you have Smash in December.
Okay, because December. Obviously that's going to be huge. But
there's going to be third-party stuff. I think, that's going to be.
I just wonder. I'm just be curious to see how this game does. Numbers-wise, you had the whole phone thing that was massive. This is kind of like a blending.
Yeah, this is a blending of Pokemon Go and the original
From what I've heard,
Pokemon.
It rubs original fans the wrong way. Traditional gameplay.
It simplifies a lot of stuff.
Simplify all the gameplay. But it's perfect probably for the people that were with the phone. I don't know how much it changes the mechanic a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty similar though, I think. Yeah, the capture
obviously
mechanic.
You're not outside.
You're not outside,
I don't know if that was... I really don't know if that was a novelty. Like that...
Was that what was successful?
Yeah, was that why people enjoyed it so much? Like, was it because it was so novel?
Yeah, I don't really think it was the battle system...
AR stuff? Or...
Yeah, augmented reality. I think that the battle system for some people or whatever, or the catching system was... Some people found it to be clever, but I think the real joy of that game was just going around and finding things.
Yeah, like, I think it was just novelty. Like, oh, this is in my... It changes your reality of outside. Like, oh, I thought this was this place, but it actually is a gym, wink, and it has...
And that caused some controversy.
Right, there was... But I'm just saying, so it'll be interesting to see how this actually translates. What do you think their thinking was? Let's try. I think the thinking, to my mind, is like, we want to get that massive success and move all those people from the phone to the Switch. So we have all that install base,
Absolutely.
That's their thought.
They didn't get all the money from those phone games, too. That was
that's probably
the way
the piece.
The deal
was probably
was done.
It was probably like sour grapes or whatever. Like, it was part of the deal, and they knew the deal going in, but they probably didn't expect it to be as large.
They said they did not. By any means did they think it was going to be as big as it was.
The timing of that was that after Mario Run?
No,
that was way before, right?
Before Mario Run, yeah.
So it seems like they've been trying to dip their toe and see what works in the phone market. But then I think they're trying, when that was such a massive thing, they're like, let's see if we can bring that into our Switch sales. Let's see if we can. So I think that I just want to see. We'll see. There's not a lot of, like I said, I don't think there's a lot of competing games for release at that time. November. I mean, like you said, there's third party. But
no, yeah, it's just a matter of like, is it going to get the Pokemon crowd? And it probably, maybe, I think curiosity-wise.
My impression is it's going to do 50-50. You'll get some people from the phones, and you'll get some from the other thing, but you're not going to get necessarily what they want.
Right. Well, they're pushing it hard. I mean, this is November 16th, and they've also announced that there's going to be 2 bundles for the game.
Right. Now, I could be completely wrong. They may get, all the old school traditional style fans of the old play style and all the phone. But I'm pretty sure they're not going to get all the phone.
Well, it plays off of the original games and the original anime, so it's to try to get the nostalgia factor for
right.
people.
I mean, it'll have that, but I just think that the phone people are just a different animal. I just don't think they're necessarily going to, like, I certainly don't think it's a system seller if those people don't have a Switch already. That's what I'm wanting. They think it might be. I don't think it is.
I don't know if the people who just got in with the phone...
Just the phones are going to say, I got to get a Switch now just to play this version.
Right, there's still updates that have been coming to the phone game.
For the phone, so they're probably like, I'm probably good,
Yeah. I mean, but anyways, the bundles are going to be... They dress up the Joy-Cons. I think one is brown, like brownish, like Eevee or something, and one is yellow. And then they have some like almost burned in graphics on the charging case of the Switch where they like the characters are on there, but it's not like they're actually, you know what? I think they were actually for this one, they were colored on it. I'd have to take a look again. But anyways, it comes with the Pokeball Plus, and I think you get your choice of either the Eevee game or the Pikachu game, depending on which bundle you buy. So seems a little strange to me that there would be the 2 bundles with, I mean, they have the games in them, but it seems like a risk to me that are you going to get enough people, like what one's more popular than the other?
That's what I'm wondering. Is it just that feature? Is that the only difference in terms of the package?
It seemed like it. Maybe one of them didn't have the Pokeball Plus,
like,
but they seemed like
old stuff, Sun and Moon and all that old, they had like specific characters, right? You could only get...
Yeah. No, that's how that worked. Yeah, that's right.
So I'm trying to think, they didn't build this that way, it sounds like. It sounds like there's going to have the same character set?
That's what I don't think so. I have a feeling that they have different sets of characters.
So it's just going to be like the old formula then.
Yeah, I think you have to probably buy them both to catch them all, or to have trade between somebody who has the other version. But the biggest difference, up front is just that you get to choose Eevee as your main partner or Pikachu as your main partner. Like, who do you want to hang out with, and who do you want to comb their hair? Like, which hair do you want to comb?
Hairstyles, okay.
That's the big piece of that. So, anyways, they're going to release that. Then after that, they talked about Diablo 3, the Eternal Collection, which is this big, success for the computers and video games for a long time, but it's now coming to Nintendo Switch. It's going to have amiibo compatibility where you can summon in more monsters to kill for loot or something, it sounds like. And then also there's a Ganon costume that I don't think you need an amiibo for that though, but there's, it's just it's another port but it's fine because it does offer the game in a new kind of venue. You get to play it in a portable kind of...
Right, that's the thing I was going to say. All these ports, that's what they're thinking. They're like, we're going to get... I think it's kind of ridiculous that... you will get some... You're going to get a lot of nostalgia plays, but it's just the portability now. That's what this... that's obviously that's what the system's built around. And I think that's where this flood of ports is coming. They're like, we're going to get all those people who just take their favorite experiences around with them now.
Right. So even if they have played them before, owned them for years...
They'll give it another look. Because it's like, now I can take my, friends or whatever around, quote-unquote friends, around with me, that kind of thing.
Right. That comes November 2nd, so that comes in advance of the Pikachu and the Eevee game. But, to me, I've never played Diablo. It kind of looks like a sort of a 3D version of Gauntlet, the old game of dungeon crawling, kind of shooting enemies and
Port
stuff.
is coming for that soon.
Yes, I can't wait. You know what? It's time for Gauntlet to hit Switch. And if it doesn't make a new Gauntlet, then they can release the old one on the NES.
You've heard it here first.
Yeah,
the Gauntlet port is coming.
That's right. It's coming. I just don't know which version it's going to be, but it's coming. After that was Super Mario Party, which they've already talked about a lot. That was one of the announcements at E3. It's going to have the first 4-player co-op mini game. So it's just Mario Party is a game about mini games. It's like a board game with a bunch of mini games, and this one's going to have the board game, the classic board game mode setup that it used to have. There's another version, another mode called Toad's Rec Room where you can combine your Switch, the tablet portion of the Switch together to make little courses and different mini games. You can drive between the screens and stuff like that. So it's got some neat ideas in it. Great music. from the trailer. And you can play it online. So
yeah, and it makes sense. It's it's the classic kind of party type game. Obviously the title, but I mean it's what the system's built around.
Yep.
So it makes complete sense, and it's a new iteration of it. So
yeah, this is not anything that
it's
was
not
done
a
before.
re-release
It's a new
just
version.
an update. It's an actual thing. So I mean that's a no-brainer.
Yep.
Okay.
Following that, they did a game that was just tentatively titled Town.
Nice.
That's it. Just Town.
Not to be confused with
The Town.
Ben Affleck.
With Ben Affleck. Not the Ben Affleck.
No, not the Ben Affleck.
It's not that one. This is by Game Freak, who was instrumental in making Pokemon. And this is also an RPG. It's coming sometime in 2019. This was kind of, in some ways, this was sort of one of the, in a certain kind of way, the big one of the big announcements from this Direct, because it was a new game that was kind of closer to a first party game. It's not quite a first party game, but because Game Freak, worked on Pokemon, and like Pokemon is such a big Nintendo franchise that people associate with Nintendo. Whenever they make a game, it's more of like a new Nintendo game than, say, when Capcom or EA or somebody else is making a game for Nintendo. So basically, it's an RPG with like very anime style, but sort of chibi, sort of super deformed. It's not quite super deformed, but it's a big bubble
like
heads.
JRPG kind of thing.
It's like that, but I think it's a little more exaggerated than that. I guess it's not that. It's more like kids anime stuff, like Yokai Watch and stuff. Really, it's similar to that, but it's very stylized, and like it looks like it's more for a younger crowd. But I'm sure that just like Pokemon, it probably has a deep system to it. I will say that it looks kind of like if Game Freak did a Pokemon game without the Pokemon, if there was more traditional magic and class system and stuff like that. So I don't think it's going to be as successful not as catch as many eyes as something like Octopath Traveler. But
right.
It's a new title, it's a new franchise for Nintendo. So I'm gonna try that. After that, they did Cities Skyline, which was it's like a sim game for building cities. You just manage cities, and it's available as of the 13th in the eShop, they said, and includes all the downloadable content that was on this before. This is also a port game, and it has the
Do we know what did it come out for? We don't know.
I do not know. I'm not familiar with it. I would imagine PC though.
Okay.
It looks like it's PC. It's got the DLC is going to be nighttime cities and winter cities, like snow and stuff. So they already, those are included in this, whereas before you had to get those separately. After that was Daemon X Machina, which they've talked about before. It's like this cel-shaded mecha game. And I think you saw it at E3.
I've seen the trailer. Yeah.
It's like a hangar.
Well, the demo, I guess.
There's like a hangar where you can go back, and then you can walk around the hangar and customize your mecha. And what they said in this is basically it looks like AI has gone out of control, and just like it will in real life eventually. And but unlike real life, you have a mecha to take control, and you go after the out of control AI, and you can then take the parts off the AI machines that you defeat and take them back to the hangar to customize your machine and go out and...
Are those mechs powered by nuclear reactors?
Nah, they didn't make that clear to me, but...
of course they wouldn't.
They are called arsenals, though. They said that's the name of them. Instead of mobile suits or whatever, it's arsenals this time. Or orbital frames like Zoe. Zone of Enders really... It has a little bit of a Zone of Enders feel to it. I don't know. I haven't really gotten a feel for it. I mean, it seems like it has some interesting ideas. I mean, I'm all for mecha games, but... And it has an interesting art style to it, but I haven't seen that the actual, I think I'd have to go hands-on with it to see how it feels control, because sometimes it looks a little slow, and it would be different if it was...
the machines are sluggish?
Yeah, when they're flying even. It would be different if this was like a BattleTech kind of ground pounder. Yeah, but this looks like it's a more sleek kind of machine that would be more swift, so I don't know. I'll have to see how it works, but... It's going to be online 4 players. And one of the things that they announced with this one, which was new news to me, was that you can get out of your mecha at any time and go on foot.
Oh, ground missions?
Yeah, but I'm not sure what that would entail, because they didn't show them have any weapons or anything. They did have them running past a tank, so maybe you can get in vehicles and stuff that are in the land. I'm not really sure how that works. Then they went into Yoshi's Crafted World, which is the sequel to Yoshi's Woolly World. That's the one. And that's coming finally spring 2019, which that's about the time that I thought it would be based on the kind of radio silence about it. I mean, they've been talking about this game for quite a while. I think maybe even, like, it wasn't one of the games that they introduced the Switch with, but I think the very next time they did a presentation about the Switch, they said Untitled Yoshi is coming, and they showed
So they've just been working on polish?
Yeah, I think they've been, and it shows, I think, that it looks a lot more interactive and dynamic in its gameplay than what they've previously shown. It looks like it's going to be a little more intense, too, than Woolly World, a little less casual. I think it looks great, honestly. It's just that...
if you're interested in, you have to like Woolly World.
Yeah, and you have to really like that. I mean, I'm kind of feel strange that Yoshi's kind of been put in this box that he has to be in these sort of distorted kind of worlds. Like Kirby, for instance, they've done some spin-offs of Kirby, like the robot one and the yarn one that they're porting to 3DS now, but they still do regular Kirby games. Now they only do Yoshi if he's going to be...
But I think the reason is they don't... This is just my theory. They don't want to cannibalize Mario, right? They're like, if they use the straight-up Mario world... Now, I mean, but you could play it the other way. You could say people might be... audience that is hungry for another Mario would jump on that. Like, we want to be in that world, so it does not cannibalize the other titles' sales. But I think that's what the conclusion that they've come to. I mean, that's why I think the thinking is behind it. But maybe they just feel like Yoshi is the place to put the experimental worlds together. So I don't know what the next one's going to be after this.
It could be. I mean, they've been kind of doing that, I guess, since the beginning, really.
I mean, did it all... Well, but this idea of, I guess, crafting now, and the other one was... Woolly stuff. Did that all come from that one...
Well, that's the strange thing.
Inspiration?
No.
She kind of gave them the idea for that stuff?
No, I don't think so. I think that the epic yarn of Kirby, for wherever that came from.
So whoever was behind that, the idea behind that kind of got them thinking.
Got thinking that everything...
But why didn't they, you wonder why they didn't stick with a bunch of alternative themes then for Kirby? As opposed to switching it over and putting the mantle with Yoshi, but...
Well, they just did a traditional Kirby for the Switch, so it's kind of strange. I mean, the thing about the Yoshi games is they've always been a little weird, I guess, when I think about it. Even the original one had some strange kind of levels, but I would say that the original Yoshi's Island played it fairly straight. It's just was...
Is that one kind of had the bizarre, like, crayon, or not really crayon?
No, I don't think that
was that the other one?
I think that Yoshi's story
was the one had the weird stuff.
Was where it really started to kind of fool around with like gene textures, and like zippers and like things like that. So like I think that's the one that started it. So maybe that's what convinced them that that's what Yoshi always is. But I don't know. I just find it a little strange because like these could almost be new franchises.
You come up with a new lead character and just throw them into these type of worlds.
Yeah, these crafted worlds.
Nintendo would have new
IP that they could
have, like a new crafting type character, and he just does, or he or she,
crafty,
crafty,
Nintendo crafty.
So I mean, you could just do something like that. But
so that's that.
What else did they have?
They did an announcement that there's a company called
Say that again.
Asmodee Games or Asmodee Digital. And
I think it might be Osmodee, but
maybe it might be whatever it is. This is the first time I've heard of them. I guess I was supposed to know about them, but I do not know about them. But there are a bunch of popular card games. Some of them based on Lord of the Rings. Some of them just completely unrelated. Just there's one about like outbreaks of diseases and stuff. They're like these tabletop games you play with cards. And another one is this really popular one called Catan. And so they're going to be releasing all these things in sort of a three-dimensional virtual card game, like tabletop card games that you can play on the Switch.
Okay.
They announced 3 of them, and then they're going to be doing more, they said.
Basically another party game.
It's kind of a new party thing. I wonder all the functionality maybe, too, of being able to combine Switches and stuff. Maybe that's a whole part of that. I think it goes back.
Have they shown a lot of that? I mean, I remember seeing that back when they were showing off, like, I think it was basketball. Like, I don't know if it was 2K or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was a 2K, yeah.
They were showing, like, using multiple screens together. Have they really shown a lot of that off in the directs? I don't remember seeing much of that.
I haven't seen a lot of it. I've seen just...
I'm wondering if that's going to be, like, if there is a lot of that, or if that's going to be one of the things that just kind of eventually slides by the wayside slowly. Like, remember with Wii U when they had the dual screen functionality with the golf ball swinging?
Well, yeah, but also with Wii U, they had the one where you actually could just play with the tablet part of the Wii U. If you remember, they had a thing was like checkers or something that you could play.
Games were just going to be, some games were going to be made specifically for the second screen.
Yeah, and you just set them between you.
And I'm not sure those materialized.
I don't recall them.
I'm curious to see. I think some of this stuff's going to be used. Like Party, right? Party
is using it. That was the first one that's like, okay, here it is. Like, so really using
Mario Party's going to be using it. Yeah, I mean, I would think, what's his name? You could use it. Kart. Did they show that with Kart ever?
I think that you can play it in sort of like that tabletop mode where it has a little kickstand and stuff. But I don't know that the two screens like interact in the way that like Mario Party is, where they're like fully interacting with one another.
Or moving from one to the other.
Yeah, one to the other.
Right. Just curious if they're going to use that more
often. Then they showed Sid Meier's Civilization 6, November 16th. It's, a civilization building game.
Builder.
Starlink Battle for Atlas with all its Star Fox exclusives. That's that Ubisoft game that they were showing at E3. They wanted to show that Star Wolf's going to be in it now as a villain, presumably, and they showed that Falco and Toad and Slippy...
appeasing the Star Fox.
Yeah.
Because obviously you're not getting one right now.
Falco, Slippy, and Peppy. There we go. Those are going to be in there, too. Yeah, no, it's very much sort of an appeasement to Star Fox people. I almost wonder...
Is it Test of Waters, or is it...
Well, if that other game is really in development from Retro Studios, because that game is... Whatever Retro's been working on, they've kind of been MIA for a while. I mean, they did that port of Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, but that was a small amount of resources, one would think. So if they're working on... There was a rumor that they were working on a Star Fox racing game, like a hybrid game of sort of like Star Fox and F-Zero mixed together. If that's true, then it could be that this is... There was rumors that game might be shown at E3. It could have been maybe they decided, look, this is already almost like a mainline Star Fox game.
This covers it.
Somewhat. Yeah, let's wait till another year
how it does,
or something. Whatever the case is, that's coming October 16th. Then there was The World Ends With You Final Remix. This is a remake of actually a game that was on the DS. It's an RPG game that's like set in Japan, and it's kind of like modern times. It's like a teenagers kind of. It's a strange little animal, but it was like a successful cult classic on the DS, and they're hoping to kind of reach a broader audience with the Switch. So they're going to do that October 12th. Then they had some download content for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Called Torna the Golden Country. It's like a prequel story is what it sounds like. And if you own the game, you get to play the downloadable content September 14th. If you don't own the game, then you can pick it up on the 21st. So they're giving you a bonus if you've stuck with the game this long.
All right.
After that, they started to kind of speed up Direct. They went through a whole suite of different games that are coming to the Switch. One of them is called Warframe. They described it as like Space Ninjas Combat. It looked kind of like a third-person version of Overwatch, maybe.
Based, I believe, on the... it is a game series, and I believe that Image Comics recently did a deal to do the comic series of Warframe, and they have that going. So
okay, all right. Well,
side note there.
Well, it must be doing really well. The
people from Warframe came to them and said, could you make us a comic? And I think that's how that worked.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time I've heard of it. It's coming November 20th. It actually, to be honest with you, the art design and stuff, it actually looks pretty cool and it looks pretty fun. So, I mean, it might be worth checking out. But, it's just, Nintendo kind of did a little quick thing with this. This wasn't like a big part of the Direct. It was just, oh, by the way, this is coming. And then they also said Just Dance 2019 is coming, October 23rd.
Of course.
FIFA 2019 is coming September 28th, I believe they said. Team Sonic Racing is coming in the winter. That's probably going to, it looks like it's kind of an updated version of the previous Sonic Racing games they had, or Sega Racing games, where you get to play different characters from Sega franchises.
Oh, Sonic, how you have fallen.
He's kind of trying to do the Mario Kart thing. He's really pushing for that.
I know, but it's always going to be like, oh, that's Sonic off in the corner. He's trying to do a kart game, but he can't.
Bless his soul.
Bless his soul. Yeah, you're really trying, but...
yeah, you're right, though. It is
Mario's poor cousin.
You're right. I mean, Mario's
blue tights,
Like Mario's doing a GoFundMe for him.
I mean, they should be knocking out, going back to the days where they try to put together a big title.
There really should be a really big Sonic, like a confident Sonic title.
They tried recently a few things, I think, but
They
haven't had anything to that level.
Look, what I'm saying is they did do that, like the Sonic Mania, which was the 2D like rebirth of the 16-bit style, which reused old stuff and added new stuff. I'm talking
the full 3D world, going up against Odyssey.
But they really should have, like when Sonic Adventure came out, whether it was 100 years ago, whether it was 100% game or not. I mean, it wasn't necessarily like a Mario 64
I agree.
Killer.
It wasn't a perfect game.
It wasn't the perfect game, but that one was like, okay, they're going for it, It's
just like, it seems like recently he's been relegated to like racers or like, I don't know what else, like just side kind of.
They've done these strange things, like sometimes like Sonic Unleashed, where they do a game where it has some of the like the 3D, like the majestic properties of something like what Sonic Adventure was in its time, but you're kind of locked in to like a perspective, like, they're locked into a track. Because they want to emphasize the speed. And then there's, when you're not locked in, what they did was they have this strange, they usually put these strange gimmicks with Sonic now, where like he turned into a werewolf in that one, like a werehog, they said. So then you get into these combat scenes with the it's just time for another, come on, let's get it together. It's time to do, they had a lot of disasters. There was that Sonic for the PlayStation 3 near its launch, I think, that was like, real disaster people talked about. I never got around to that one. But I know that they're capable of doing it.
And there's things they could do with it.
There's a lot you could do with that. So anyways, that's a complete sidetrack. But the bottom line is right now, Sonic is working on his racing career, okay? He's been in a couple years now. He's moving up the circuit.
Right.
And he's coming for Mario with his karts. That's the thing.
We'll see.
So after that, we had NBA 2K19, which they said is available now. NBA 2K Playgrounds 2 for the fall. It's sort of a caricaturized, like cartoony. It looks kind of like a 3D NBA Jam kind of version. They claim that the first one, maybe there is a sim component to it, I'm not sure. They claim the first one, according to this direct, was a great, success, really popular. I don't remember hearing that about it, but anyways, this is the follow-up to that.
Must have missed it, okay.
Lego DC Supervillains, October 16th. This is the latest in the Lego bombardment of Lego games. The never-ending surge of Lego games. So this time you get to play the Joker, Harley Quinn, all the classics. So.
Well, I mean, I think that there could be some audience for that. It's just...
Well, I'm sure, it helps to have all ages kind of thing, I think, so.
Okay.
Then after that, they made this big thing. And by the way, Final Fantasy is coming to Nintendo.
Gasp, right.
And so what they've done here is they just had a smorgasbord of Final Fantasy ports of varying degrees.
So basically, Nintendo called them up and could you just dump everything you have from the past onto the Switch?
Everything we lost out on during the wars with Sony, basically.
And they're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
If you pay us.
So, but in all fairness, the first game was actually a Nintendo game. So, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered. This is a port of a GameCube game, which had its share of fans, but it was an awkward game because it was one of those experimental games along with Legend of Zelda 4 Swords where you needed to have not only the GameCube, but link cables and multiple Game Boy Advances to play it like at the same time.
Yeah.
So what they've done this time is they just, instead of having multiple Game Boy Advances, it's online multiplayer with different switches. And so now that campaign mode with multiple people kind of works smoother, I think, or at least is more accessible. They said that's coming out in 2019. The other one with Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition HD. I'm not familiar with this. Final Fantasy 15 is obviously the newest Final Fantasy. That was the one with the bros that drove around in the... I don't know, it was a Cadillac? No, I don't think it was a Cadillac. What was it? It was like a real...
Convertible.
Like a sports car or something. It was a nice convertible car, though. And anyways, this one's like SD chibi versions of all the characters, and they go on an adventure. I don't really know what it entails, but that was one of the games. World of Final Fantasy Maxima, November 6th. Another kind of Final Fantasy spin-off. I'm not familiar with that part of Final Fantasy, so I can't really help you there. And then Chocobo Dungeon. Everybody with it's not everybody, but everybody. Everybody. No, like your buddies. Yeah. Anyways, was a spin-off of Final Fantasy where you play the little, like the bird things that are popular in Final Fantasy, like yellow birds that are, you can ride them. They're like kind of like ostriches, but cuter.
I remember.
Yeah. So anyways, They got their own little spin-off of dungeon, kind of like when Pokemon had the Pokemon dungeon, mystery dungeons or whatever. So you get to play as them in a sort of a RPG, dungeon crawler adventure. Final Fantasy XII remastered port as well. Final Fantasy XII was late in the PlayStation 2 cycle, and it's gotten re-released. That was revolutionary for Final Fantasy because it added more of a real-time battle system versus
was that the one that was just remade? It was like new graphics and everything. It was just about a year or two ago.
It was a steampunk kind of thing where there's a guy and a girl.
Yeah, I think that was just remade.
They did. Anyways, apparently, I think it was a game that was a little overlooked when it originally came out because it was late in the thing, and whatever the case is,
let's give it a try.
They're giving it another go on Switch in 2019. And then they said, and also coming is
Pikmin.
No, not Pikmin. No, this is still Final
Pikmin.
No, this is still Final Fantasy. 7 with Cloud, of course. 9, which was more of a cutesy visual style, more of an old school Final Fantasy style, but it was still serious.
Final Fantasy 10, 11,
yes,
12,
10.
13.
10 is on there, which was the early one, PlayStation 2. And then 10-2. Which was the time they had a sequel, but it focused on the ladies of 10, and they team up for their own adventure. But that one's the remaster.
Cutie.
What? Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's kind of like when they did the SNK Fighting Heroines, I think it's called now. But no, but anyways, bottom line is I think those latter two, or at least the last one, were remastered previously, so all those ones are coming as ports. The 7 and 9 looked like they were straight PlayStation ports from the original PlayStation.
Sure.
Those games had never appeared on Nintendo hardware before. And some of those were either they were monster successes or they were cult classics.
Again, probably the portability thing we talked about.
That's right. 7's going to excite people just to be able to revisit that with the portability. But there's only one trick to that is, I think this is an acknowledgement. They've said they were going to remake 7. But that's still a long time away in terms of development. So
this is just throwing them a bone.
Yeah, this is kind of helping people,
keeping in the zeitgeist, if you will, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So we're getting near the end here. They said that boy, it's been a long one.
No, don't forget the big announcement though.
So I'm not done with the big announcements yet. The Smash Brothers bundle, which everyone can see that, but this one's got the characters kind of painted or etched onto the thing in sort of a grayish kind of tone on the Switch.
Okay.
And it's got 2 Joy-Cons with the sort of the cross logo of Smash intersecting between them. And it comes with a copy of the game, a digital copy. That's November 2nd that comes out. I think they also announced that there's going to be the GameCube stuff is coming that day too, like the GameCube controller to play it like Melee, and the multi-tap basically to plug that in so that it's like an adapter that'll let you play with the GameCube controllers. So that's coming then. And at that point they did their one more thing. And they said, and it's interesting that they said, please wait until the end, to the very end, which is strange because
they announced the new Labo.
No, they didn't announce. They didn't even talk about Labo. That's new.
Here's our new Labo.
Yeah, the new Labo's coming out. But
wait, we're not doing Labo anymore. Maybe. We don't know.
No, they're doing a Labo still for a little bit longer at least. Anyways, they did this thing, and it's good that they said stick around, because I saw Twitter after this, people were really getting nervous because what they did is they did this Animal Crossing video where they show Isabelle from Animal Crossing doing her little chores and stuff and talking about how people are off in Smash. And then she gets an invite to Smash. But people were like, oh my gosh, all that effort showing Animal Crossing just for Smash. And they were heartbroken by it. That was like a teaser when everybody really wanted an Animal Crossing announcement for Switch. But the guy said, wait till the end.
He said wait, right?
So once the Smash trailer was over, then they went and showed Tom Nook, the raccoon character from Animal Crossing. And he talked about he has to make the town ready for when everyone comes back from their tough work in Smash. So then they threw up the logo, Welcome to Animal Crossing 2019 Switch. Now this is, again, it was just a logo, but people went crazy, loved it.
Well, that's what they did with Metroid.
That's exactly right. They did that with Metroid, and they did that with...
Now, did they say 2019?
They did say 2019.
Okay, so then
they didn't say a date with Metroid.
They did not, yeah.
And I think there's a reason for that, but... They did talk about... what's his name? They did Pokemon that way, too, when they said there was a new Pokemon coming in 2019, separate from these Let's Go ones. But they did the same thing where they just had a logo. So Nintendo's doing a lot of logos lately, which is interesting. They're getting ahead of themselves, which is not a policy they normally do, but I think they're getting people's sort of social media pressure maybe is making them want to show a little more of, okay, we got this coming down the pipe.
Yeah, just reassurance so people know there is stuff coming.
Yeah. And then they said, that's it. That was the Nintendo Direct, and it really crammed a lot in there. There was a lot they offered for people, owners of the Switch.
I mean, it was probably the largest Direct recently. I mean, they've been doing the Smash Directs.
It seems like this was the most
breadth, like a wide breadth of things.
Right. I mean,
for multiple audiences.
Right. That's the thing is I mean,
it's like a wide net to catch as many people.
Yeah, that was what was good about it. There really was a lot of different offerings that you could play. The only problem with it was some of these things have been available.
That's the caveat, right?
Some, and by some I probably mean a lot, have been available in other forms over the years. So, I mean, I guess the question is with all these ports, like basically you had three sort of, not counting previously announced titles for Switch like the Yoshi game, you had really three kind of big exclusives. I mean, and I put big in quotes or whatever, but no, we had the Luigi's Mansion 3, okay, it's coming. We have the town, actually, it's not the town. It's this town, and you have Animal Crossing. But outside of that, the amount of things you saw plus those three, how does that make you feel about getting a Switch going forward? Or if you haven't gotten a Switch?
Is it convincing, right?
Is it convincing to those who have not bought a Switch so far?
Well, I'm telling you, that's some of their argument, like even the Pokemon thing, like we talked about earlier. I think they're testing that to see, can we pull more people into the Switch market?
Yeah, I mean, like 2019, they're going to have the games that we talked about here, but they're also going to have a new dedicated Fire Emblem game for Switch, and supposedly a dedicated Pokemon game that's not like, it's a full-fledged Pokemon game versus a spin-off like
Let's Go.
Not Let's Go. And then after that, it's kind of a big mystery of what's coming because Metroid has been announced, but we really don't know how far along in development that is. They've seemed to suggest that it's not very far along to this point. They certainly haven't shown anything of it. I question whether that's a 2019 release. I almost don't think so.
Even if it was, it would probably be late.
Yeah,
holiday,
that's right.
End of year.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. So, I mean, there's these options for 2019, but I don't know if any of these... Pokemon could be a knockout punch, I guess, but that's for a very specific crowd. I guess the thing of it is we had this sort of fool's gold of the initial launch with Zelda, which was kind of really was sort of a port of a Wii U game, but because it came out at the same time, it kind of acted... It masked. It was sort of like a launch... It really was a launch title in a lot of people's eyes. And then you had Mario Odyssey that same year. But those games, like Mario Odyssey, had been in development preparing for sort of the slow death of the Wii U and the launch of the Switch. Like, I think they had been preparing Odyssey for a while. And
what was interesting about that, though, is if you think of it, they didn't put it as the launch title. So even like you're saying, even if they were preparing, they decided to go ahead. I guess because Zelda, it was time to put Zelda out.
I think that was the real thing. Is it was time to put Zelda out for the Wii U.
So they're like, why don't we we're going to port it kind of. We're going to use it as a launch title, so to speak, kind of a pseudo launch title. Mm-hmm. We're going to have two launch titles. We're going to have that. We're going to hit them secondly with Odyssey.
Yeah,
I mean, you think that,
and they had other things like ARMS around it and 1-2 Switch, but some of those things were a little more tech demoly. I mean, you had Mario Kart 8 that year. That was again an enhanced port. It sold bananas. It did great, but and then you had a couple other ports. Like there's been stuff like since then like Hyrule Warriors and things like that. Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. But I mean, like that's the thing is you've seen as it's gotten further away from the launch. It's actually become more and more ports from the Wii U, it seems like.
Right, which is, I think that's them. I mean, obviously, the Wii U kind of crashed and burned, so I think it's, just their way of covering those costs. Like, we're still going to make money on those titles.
I mean, because some of those were really good titles. Like, there wasn't necessarily that one title that, okay, I have to necessarily own. I mean, you can make arguments for some of them, but all in all, they were all very solid titles. I mean, that they released, there was a lot of solid titles.
For whatever reason, Wii U, whether it was just that people didn't get that it was a new system away from Wii or whatever the case was. They just didn't have the install base. They never got the sales on those titles. So I think that's what a lot of these ports are that are Nintendo proprietary. Now, third-party ports, like I said, I don't know if that's just...
You kind of really... In some ways, it would be a healthier sign if there was more third-party originals like Octopath Traveler. Like,
Right.
if this Direct had... That's actually a little concerning in that this Direct had a lot of... Like, Daemon X Machina was a unique IP, but like a lot of stuff was ports from several generations ago of different titles. That's a little...
That strikes me as almost like we need content. We want to get a wider swath of an audience install base. The easiest way to do that is to pay smaller licensing fees, or however the money works, to get these old titles, and we're going to be able to pad out our lineup with this stuff, and we're not going to have these large development costs or the large, payments to these companies to develop new games for us.
Right, and I think those companies like the idea of, Switch is popular.
Yeah,
and
we're
has a
going to
good
make
install
money
base.
on our old things we've already released. It's free money for them, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Some of them add little features,
Right, there's probably some tweaking to get it to work on the software,
Well, yeah,
like the
there's
hardware.
probably some tweaking, but not as much as a full development.
Probably not from the ground up, yeah. So that makes
That's
sense.
what strikes me the most.
But
though.
I mean, let's forecast this forward now, because I mean, like a lot of people are just thinking about, okay, well, you did Luigi's Mansion. I'm going to have Fire Emblem, Luigi's Mansion, a couple other things coming this next year. But you forecast this out. We already talked about the 3DS. It doesn't seem like it's long for this world.
Right.
But the Switch, obviously, Nintendo's made a big commitment to it, and they've made such a big splash in the market, and now they have to sustain that. That's the hard part. And if you look at that, like, what are people going to be looking for? Right now, it seems like the carrot on the end of the stick is Metroid Prime 4. It's like, as long as I know Metroid, like, first of all, Smash, because that's the short term, that's coming. But they're like, as long as I know Metroid Prime 4 is out there, I'm going to stick with this, because I'm curious to see how that ends up, and I want that. And there's obviously some of these other titles have some attraction, but it seems like Metroid's sort of one of the big ones hanging over, along with Pokemon probably. But let's forecast beyond that.
Right.
What would be because there's going to be a lot of people, I think, who say this Direct was a lot of padding with just few announcements that were intriguing but not, overwhelming. It depends on what, if you're an Animal Crossing fan, then this was like,
the big thing.
This was Christmas for you. But if Animal Crossing's not your main thing, or, you may not...
Let's say you were looking for another Zelda. You were looking for another Mario.
And there are people out there, I know, I've actually talked to some people, they are looking for the next Odyssey experience, the next Breath of the Wild experience.
Well, where's Pikmin?
Or Pikmin. Yeah, there you go. So that's one of the big mysteries, is where is Pikmin? Because we've known that Pikmin was in development, a second Pikmin was in development for the Wii U after Pikmin 3. And Miyamoto said that it was like really close to completion. And it just was a matter of finding a good release schedule for it. And I think this was around the time that they were trying to figure out the release schedules for Star Fox Zero and Breath of the Wild for the Wii U. And
they didn't say it at the time, but they knew, obviously, that, they didn't say it publicly. They knew that they also had Odyssey in the pipeline. They're like, when is going to be a good time?
Yeah, and interestingly about Odyssey,
and they probably knew they had Splat.
Yeah, well, that's probably true too. I forgot to mention that they did Splat 2, which has some. I don't know if it's the big jump from the original, but it is a genuine sequel. I mean, in terms of it's a new game, it's not just a straight up port.
Right.
So they had that too. But yeah, I mean, those things had to be in development, like you said, for a little bit.
So they knew that. They did some of those things, and people could guess. But
they didn't make a Galaxy 3 for Wii U. There was talk about would they not. And, Miyamoto was coy about it, saying that they could, but it would depend on various things. But probably they were thinking at the time that, look, we're not sure this Wii U's going to survive, and we got to prepare for the Switch. So I think Odyssey came out of that mentality. The bottom line now is where do they go from here? They got this Pikmin that's hanging out there. If it's so far along in development, why hasn't it materialized yet? That's the question. Now, there's something happened like this on the Wii, where the Wii had Pikmin 3 in development, and then it got pushed to the Wii U because they were excited about the second screen features and a couple other things. And graphical capability, I think that was a big thing too. They wanted for all the blades of grass and things like that, they thought they could pull off. But now where is it? Did that just become vaporware and they're starting over?
Like, they have to retexture everything from scratch, maybe? I mean, I don't know if it's just a texture or if it's a models thing, but whatever the case is, it's disappeared. Maybe they're just looking for a better time to release it. But it's strange because I think that's another game like Animal Crossing that would do a lot of goodwill for the system, even if it wouldn't be hottest seller. Because, like, the Pikmin games have not really, none of them have cracked 2 million really sales. So I mean they've all been low.
So ironically enough, maybe part of the thing is they're like, well, it's going to cost us more to. I mean, although they probably, like you said, if they to some extent they have to have some of the assets done if they've been developing it since Wii U.
If it's on the Wii U, the graphics actually shouldn't be that bad. Because if you think of Breath of the Wild and you think of Mario Kart,
right?
Like those games ported over to the Switch, and nobody complained about those visuals, really. I don't know. I'm not really sure what the hang-up is. It could... I don't know what... I'm really confused about that. So Pikmin's out there.
I was just wondering, maybe it's a deal like these third-party ports are getting kind of, maybe they're adding up to comparable numbers. Like you said, the numbers weren't so high. I mean, I can't believe that third-party ports would get up to, what'd you say, 2?
They would have to get up to 2. The Pikmins have done.
I mean, I would think those are more in the smaller ranges, like 0.5 or something like that. Half.
I don't know. I mean, we saw that for the first-party port of Tropical Freeze, it did just almost 1 so far.
Maybe.
I don't know. It could be that they're preparing Pikmin 3 for a port, and then that would be a lead-in to a Pikmin 4. They could be preparing something like that. Okay. I don't know. I'm just surprised. I think I'm most surprised about it, like you said, where's Pikmin, you said. I think I'm most surprised about that because Luigi's Mansion 3 was announced before Pikmin 4.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, so that kind of shows you what in the... it seems to show you the pecking order or whatever. Like, it's not even as much as Luigi's Mansion to them. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's concerning.
Or is that just how it was in... I mean, I can't imagine that Luigi's Mansion was in development before you're telling me this Wii U Pikmin.
Right, that's a question.
That's an interesting...
I would doubt that.
Really, yeah. I mean, it could have been, but I mean...
Well, here's the thing. This is actually a bigger question. Who's developing Luigi's Mansion 3? Because Luigi's Mansion 2 was developed outside.
Oh, did they say?
No, they didn't say. And a lot of games, like some of these games that we're looking forward to are being developed by not like the central Nintendo studios. Like Pokemon is the Pokemon Company game. That's a different branch than the main Nintendo. You've got Bandai Namco working on Metroid Prime 4. So the question is, and Retro's been working on something mysterious. What are the people who made Odyssey, ARMS, Zelda, what are they working on right now? And is it anything that's going to be that you can show off anytime soon? Like Zelda, Eiji Aonuma said that he's just thinking about the next Zelda now. So I don't know if we're going to see any more new Zelda content or DLC for a while. The Mario, they might be working on something for Odyssey. Now, I don't know if they would do Odyssey 2 right out the gate, but they might do some new download content for it or something next summer or something maybe to help tide things over. But I'm not sure. Right now, it's just not clear what's being worked on. And so if you go beyond Pikmin, there's franchises they could do. They could pull out Wave Race. They could pull out Pilot Wings, F-Zero. They could do something really substantial with Kid Icarus. I mean, that is a franchise in particular that has not been tapped at all. Kid Icarus could be as big as Zelda if they wanted it to be, or Metroid, but
they would have to change the idea of the rail. It have to be like a full game,
right? Well, like the last one, they went with this idea that it was a rail shooter. I mean, that was it was different. It was a different idea. It was creative, but I don't think that's what best serves that franchise.
Right.
If you look at what the franchise was in its first 2 entries, so I mean, there was a lot of shooting in the originals, but it had more like kind of questing elements. It was more like Metroid in some ways. There's Excite Bike. You can go deep into the Cadillac. You can do some deep cuts. There's other ones I've heard about that I can't even remember the names of, but there's like another one that has like a race car character or whatever that it's like a future Mad Max kind of thing. It's a sci-fi thing. Like they.
Hello?
Yes, hello. The title you're thinking of is Mock Rider, and the vehicle you're speaking of is not a car, but a motorcycle. Good day.
Click. Huh.
They have some things, but Star Fox, it may or may not be in development, but what are you expecting to hear from a Direct if you're a Nintendo person that's going to make you want to buy a Switch, or if you're not a Nintendo person even? Like, that's the thing is, what is the next Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey that's going to convince the person who's on the fence? Or will these third-party ports be enough? Like, would that be something that they're looking for? One caveat is those third-party ports are going to get harder. The further the Switch goes along, its visuals are not going to be able to keep up with where we're going with the PS4 heading towards PS5 and that sort of thing. So it's going to be harder for the Switch to maintain that. Labo is still out there. They really want to grow the Switch to be as big as Wii, so they're trying a lot of different experiments with games like the Labo series of stuff, but it's been yet to be seen how successful.
I haven't really seen. I mean, it came out. It's a thing, kind of, but I mean, it's like I haven't seen their commitment to it yet. Whether that's just
it kind of reminds me of like when they do stuff like Game Boy Camera and printer.
Yeah, that's where it's at right now for me.
There's
it's
this novelty.
I see it. It's there, but it's it's what do they have? 2 sets or 3?
They have 2 sets now. There's a 3rd set coming out this month, as far as I recall.
Okay, so they do have 3 at least, but I mean,
so that's. I think that about wraps us up here. That was what the Nintendo Direct was, and kind of where it stands right now. I mean, the Switch has titles coming for it that are going to be attractive to longtime Nintendo fans, like deep Nintendo fans are going to be interested in stuff like Animal Crossing, Luigi's Mansion, things like that. But as far as if they want to break open into that wider audience, they've still got a ways to go to get more third-party exclusives. And that's kind of the future of the Switch, because if they don't get those, they only have so many resources to put into these first-party titles. And we mentioned they only have a set amount of franchises that are known enough that people care about them.
Right. So, I mean, I just feel like, and if Switch isn't the machine, I mean, they've been talking about this for multiple cycles now. If Switch is not the machine with its portability that everybody's jumping on, to bring in those third-party exclusives, or just, I just don't see what else Nintendo can bring to the table. I mean, who knows what the future's going to be, it could be doing VR, Nintendo VR.
Well, Nintendo's always going to have those great first-party titles that are just kind of sprinkled throughout the life cycle. But if people are expecting every year they're going to get, Mario and Zelda every year or every other year, it doesn't look like that's. I mean, we've basically. I don't know. It's
interestingly with when they did Galaxy, they did 2 of those, right, for the same.
They did 2 of those for the Wii.
Yeah. So there was 2 Mario, big 3D.
Right. There was
unless that was just a split game.
No, they claimed that it was supposed to be extra content they were working on.
And they just built off
of it.
So I mean, that's kind of in some ways a split game. But go ahead.
No, I don't think I have much more to say about this. I think it's unrealistic. We have to ask ourselves how far they can take. When 3DS closes down, if 3DS inevitably is going to be shut down, the way they've restructured their company, they should have more assets available for the Switch. But if they decide to make another portable system, unless it's like a Switch Mini or something that's interconnected to the Switch, you're not going to be benefiting from that restructuring the way that that's
the whole thing with Nintendo. It's always the curveball, right? It's like right now they're pushing Switch, but and I'm sure that's real for them. But I think also behind the scenes they're probably working on something that they think can be the next 3DS or that type of a platform where they're going to get another extra type of audience.
Right.
In addition to whatever they have. So that may be their strategy. We're not worried. We're just trying to kind of fill the time until this new device launches. That could be the thing.
And I guess you have to ask yourself if phones are going to just continually kind of stymie them. They're branching out into the phone business.
Well, they've tried. They have baby steps.
Yeah, they're making more and more titles in that direction. But a Nintendo system, you can always count on you're going to have a set amount of games. But is that enough? Like you said, if this would seemingly be the perfect format to finally get over the hump in terms of...
Well, if you want to get back to more of like a... I don't know if you could ever get to a juggernaut level again like they had with the original NES, where all the third party...
Right, they're not going to...
They could never get to that level again. But even if they wanted to get into a chunk of that, if that was even possible...
Well, they want to get to the Wii level where they had more of a wider audience, which is why I think that they're experimenting with things like Labo and stuff like that. And even why a lot of their games are more party and social focused now, in terms of there's a lot more multiplayer than there is single player. That's a kind of a trend in the industry altogether. But Nintendo's, like, if you look at what they did with 1-2-Switch, ARMS, Mario Kart 8, this new Mario Party, the new titles they've been pushing up front have been a lot of multiplayer games. So we're going to see what kind of audience they get, what kind of announcements they come up with in the future. It'll be interesting to see if they have any more announcements this year that they make. I mean, I think they're going to reveal some more Smash characters probably before all's said and done, maybe 1 or 2 more. But
yeah, I mean, it's late, but it's relatively early. They could have... I could picture at least, 2 more directs maybe? 1 more direct?
There might be one more direct at the end of the year to kind of
to launch
get you
Smash,
ready.
You think? To get people hyped for that?
There might be a Smash direct, right before launch. Or there could be a December direct to tell you more about 2019. But this,
because I was thinking
covered
more.
a lot.
Well, that's true, but I was thinking more around like November. But I don't know what they would. Maybe just around Pokemon.
I don't know. I don't know what they would do. I mean, one last thing I wanted to mention though that I forgot to earlier, which is speaking of the future of third-party support for Nintendo. It's interesting that there's rumors surrounding various Smash characters being added, like Simon Belmont, like Ridley, Ice Climber, Snake, and Isabelle, that were connected to another rumor out there by the same sort of leaker person who said that there was going to be sort of a revival of Castlevania and as a collection and a new game, and it might be for Switch. So I think that third parties are looking at the Switch. I mean, they're at least including it in the conversation. Because these ports for Final Fantasy, I don't think all of them, but some of them were also announced for some of the other machines too. So, it's just really a question of quantity and uniqueness and what can come to Switch. So, I don't know. We shall see.
Hey, thanks for listening to the pilot episode of the AGO Plus podcast. Let us know what you think, and be sure to check out the show notes links for more anime and video game articles. I recommend the audio article Smashing into History Why Castlevania's Crossover with Nintendo Matters. Alright. There's a lot of technical things that were learned during this recording, and we'll try to work out the bugs before the official episode 1. Have a great day.